Our meeting tonight is now open for the sharing of testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Day from Georgia. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Today, I had to register my daughter for kindergarten. This was very important to my husband and me. And wanting to be well prepared, I began the process of researching requirements, gathering documents, and so on a few months ago. This morning, I was the second person to arrive at the school. There was no line. I waited for only a few minutes. The staff was very welcoming and helpful. And best of all, they thanked me more than once for having all of the required documentation and all of it in order. The entire process was very smooth, and I had a peaceful and joyful feeling throughout. What I learned from this experience was really a reminder that God knows all and God knows best. There were a few pieces of paperwork that I thought I would have prepared and in place well in advance of today, though I didn't actually get to them until this morning just before leaving. What's most meaningful is that even though things weren't falling into place prior to today, as I was certain they should, I maintained a calm sense with a constant reminder not to worry and to trust God. Proverbs 3, verses 5 through 6 reads, "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths." Today's experience was short proof of the importance of living this way, and I'm most grateful for this lesson and all that I'm continuing to learn in this church. Thank you, Fairley, for tonight's readings, and thank you for all the testimonies that will be given tonight. I'm very grateful to be here tonight.
Thank you. Dave from Florida. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the readings, first of all. About a month ago, my left knee started bothering me. It hurt a lot when I walked. I was handling it as an aggressive suggestion because there seems to be a lot of that going on here in Florida. I also decided to ask for help from a practitioner here in this church because the problem was not really being met. She told me to work with the hymn that begins with, "Oh, walk with God along the road, your strength he will renew. Wait on the everlasting God, and he will walk with you." I worked with that during my morning walks as well as any other time I was walking. It was very comforting and healing, and I would say that within a week's time, the pain was totally gone, and I am fine. I'm very grateful for Christian Science, to be a member of this church, and for the healing work of the practitioner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy, New Jersey.
Nancy from New Jersey. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I wish to express my gratitude for the service this evening, the beautiful readings, and as always, for the beautiful, uplifting music. Tonight, I would like to express my gratitude for having the opportunity to better understand the meaning of what Mrs. Eddy states in miscellaneous writings on page 354. Quote, "A little more grace, a motive made pure, a few truths tenderly told, a heart softened, a character subdued, a life consecrated, would restore the right action of the mental mechanism and make manifest the movement of body and soul in accord with God." Unquote. Recently, as I was walking, I stumbled and took a pretty hard fall. My first thought was to just get up. However, I had twisted my left ankle and hand, and my right knee felt quite painful, and I just couldn't seem to manage getting up. A fellow church member happened to be nearby, and instantly, even before she got to me, I could hear her firmly repeating, "God good, God good. As she stood near me, she kept telling me so tenderly and lovingly that there is only God good. I could feel her compassion and the gentle father-mother love flowing through her to me. She gently helped me to stand, and with a big smile, she embraced me, and she told me this never happened to God, so it could never happen to me. It snapped me right out of the mesmerism, for which I am so grateful. I had glanced at my hand and noticed that a large bruise was already covering my palm, but I immediately looked away and kept recalling the truths that were so tenderly told to me, and I held to the grace and the love that was shown to me, which did indeed restore the right action of my thoughts and made manifest in me the movement of my body in accord with God. A short while later, I saw that most of the bruising had started to disappear, and that I was able to walk much more freely. Several times in the night, a sense of stiffness tried to take hold, but I was able to quickly recall and feel that tender father-mother love that was shown and washed over me. And in the morning, I was completely free of all bruising and could walk freely and painlessly. I am so very grateful to God for this healing opportunity, for the angel messenger he sent to comfort me, for the teaching in this church that when instant in the truth, we are able to lift others up with our light. I'm so very grateful to my practitioner for her loving support and prayerful work in this instance and always, and for teaching me to see the blessings in every situation. And I am so very grateful to be with you all this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen from California.
I have been doing a lot of thinking recently about God's law and its ever-present power. The Bible is full of instances of what the power of right knowing can do in any situation, not to mention the power Christ Jesus and Mrs. Eddy demonstrated. Edward Kimball has a wonderful article in his book, Lectures and Articles on Christian Science, called Power and Law Invisible. In this article, he says, quote, "There is positively no law against you, and moreover, know this still further, that you are entitled to enforce the law of your own life. Be not afraid." Unquote. At no time has anyone seen power or law. We cannot see actual power and law, but we know its presence by its effects. There was an experience having to do with my daughter that really illustrates this. Although at the time those were not my exact thoughts, I can see now why what I proclaimed at the time had so much power. My daughter was about 10 or 11 years old and on a softball team. She and her teammate were both warming up to hit the ball, when somehow my daughter was hit by her friend with the bat on her shoulder blade. I did not see it happen. All I heard were gasps by the parents. I heard my name being called in a panic, and one of the parents running up to me with my daughter, telling me what happened and that I need to take her home immediately and put ice on her shoulder. Her last words were, "I hope nothing is broken. She was hit really hard." I thanked her for bringing my daughter to me, and immediately we started to walk to my car, which was a little ways away. As I was assuring her that God loves her, I remembered a statement in Science and Health where Mrs. Eddy says on page 397, quote, "When an accident happens, you think or exclaim, 'I am hurt.' Your thought is more powerful than your words, more powerful than the accident itself to make the injury real." Unquote. I reminded my daughter that we needed to forgive her friend because she did not hit her intentionally. The next thing I said to her was that we had a decision to make, and that was, were you hit or not? If we admit that such a thing happened, we will go home and put ice on your shoulder and whatever it is you would like me to do to make you comfortable. Or we decide that as a child of God, you could never have been hit by a bat. Where was God when this supposedly happened? If we're going to accept that you were never hit because nothing can come between you and God, then you don't have to go home, but can turn around and go back and play. Well, going home certainly did not appeal to my daughter, so she decided right then and there that she never could have been hit with a bat, and so there was no reason for her to go home. When the parents saw us turn around and come back, and the big smile of relief on my daughter's face that she did not need to go home, you can imagine some of the comments. I thanked them for their concern, but assured them that my daughter was perfectly okay and wanted to continue playing. I am so grateful for this experience that so clearly demonstrated that the quicker we stand up to the suggestions that come that there is another power or presence or law other than God, good, the sooner we are free from the effects of these suggestions. My daughter never complained of any soreness or stiffness from the experience. It was a complete healing and instantaneous. I am so grateful for what we are being taught here at Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent about how to maintain our oneness with God and know that we are never without all we need at any moment, because His love and power are everywhere.
Karen from California. Joanne from Florida. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I was thinking again today about how grateful I am for a healing I've had since I began working with a practitioner here several months ago. I was having chronic pain in my knees and hips. It was especially painful when walking. And I had asked the practitioner to pray for me. And she told me to study daily Mrs. Eddy's definition of God in Science and Health. The part stating that God is all acting was especially helpful. Practitioner also asked me to study Mrs. Eddy's article on age, which is on our website. And the statement that really helped was, quote, "You change the physical manifestations in proportion to your changed thoughts of the effects of accumulated years. Expecting an increase of usefulness and vigor from advanced years, with as much faith as you look for decrepitude and ugliness, a favorable result will be sure to follow." End quote. Well, what I really needed to do was to walk more closely with God, to consistently use the Christian Science I've been taught, and watch the thoughts that I entertain, to not hold on to thoughts of resentment, pride, discouragement, irritation, and other negative feelings. And as I was more consistent in doing this, little by little, step by step, my walking became easier and painless. I'm now able to effortlessly walk over 2 miles daily, plus ride my bike for several miles. No amount of physical therapy or physical exercise could have brought about this healing. Only Christian Science and the help of practitioner here. I'm so grateful for this healing, for the practitioner's help, and for membership in this healing church. And thank you for those beautiful readings.
Thank you. Craig.
So glad to be here tonight, and thank Fairley for those really good readings. I love the way it was said, make big demands on love, or Mrs. Eddy said she makes big demands on love. And I realize that how essential that is, that we progress. To say that we love and we not do nothing or little from day to day is it's just a delusion of fooling ourselves that we're making progress when we're not. Well, I love the lesson sermon we have here. It is always some sort of, I say, revelation God talks to us, explaining it and leading us higher in understanding of Him and ourselves and the world. And it's helped me so much. I feel like I'm getting a treatment every time I read it. Well, the other day I was doing some errands. Everything was just fine. And all of a sudden, a great deal of weakness and extreme tiredness came over me. And words from the lessons, probably quite some time ago in the Bible, came to me immediately. The Spirit of God made me, and the breath of the Almighty have given me life. And that meant that I had a purpose. Breath, He'd give me a purpose to do, and I would be able to accomplish it. I knew that God was my life, and God is life. And as quickly as I had gotten extremely tired, it just passed like a cloud. And I went about my business, and I remarked, that was just wonderful. Thank you, God. But that's the power of truth that we've been taught through Mary Baker Eddy's Christian Science in this church. It's quick, it's powerful, and it wipes away those myths, as you would call it, or bad situations. That is God's love. It's ever present with us. And I thank God for this church and our practitioners and the learning we have here.
Thank you. Linda.
Thank you very much for the service this evening. Tonight I want to express my gratitude for practitioner support here at the Plainfield Independent Church and the many audios available on our website. During a routine eye exam, I was told that one of my eyes was showing symptoms of a problem. She spent extra time closely examining it and expressed concern and wanted me to come back to have it monitored. My practitioner instructed me to pray daily about vision and told me to use several articles from our website often. 3 of them that I used were Age by Mary Baker Eddy, True Vision by John Morgan, and Eyes and Ears by Bignell Young. I followed her instructions and continued to get regular practitioner support and put into daily practice what I was learning. 2.5 years later, I needed to get new glasses. With practitioners' prayers, I found a perfect place that met all my needs and had wonderful people there. It was a beautiful place, and my eyes were thoroughly checked by an experienced optometrist. Not one problem was found in either eye. I was given my new prescription and sent on my way. I am very grateful for this and many other healings and lessons from working with my practitioner here and participating in this church. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy.
I'm very grateful tonight for all I am learning here and for the teachings and patience of my practitioner. My practitioner has spoken to me many times about the need to take care of myself. So when I started to feel poorly at the beginning of last week, I knew that I had been pushing myself far too much and not being obedient. I started trying to take time for myself, but it was a little too late at that point. I further made the error of not speaking to my practitioner directly about it to get help. She finally had to bring it up to me and let me know I definitely should have said something to her when the issue was first presenting itself. And then she reiterated the things she had told me before, such as the need to eat well, get enough sleep, get enough exercise, and not let myself feel pressured. And this past Sunday, in the roundtable, she brought out from Teaching and Addresses by Edward Kimball, where he says, quote, "You are entitled to enforce the law of your own health," end quote. Since then, I have been working on making sure that I incorporate all that my practitioner said by enforcing them as right laws in my life. For a long time, I had apparently made it a law that I will work as hard as I need to for as long as I need to in order to complete any work I felt directed to do. Of course, God doesn't give me or anyone work that will infringe on her health, so I need to temper that with correct thinking about myself and about the purpose God has for me here. I admit it's a work in progress, but I'm so grateful that my practitioner is always there to correct my thinking and get me back on track. And also, while writing this, I realize I need to enforce a law that I will ask for help from my practitioner when I need it. So I'm very grateful for this church, my practitioner, and for all the practical teaching here. Thank you.
Thank you. Shardy.
Good evening. My gratitude for God, Christ Jesus, and Mary Baker Eddy has been brought to a new level of thanksgiving because of my practitioner and this independent Christian Science church. I have learned that we show our gratitude with our work, dedication, and humility. The God I knew before seemed afar off, and I never realized how much He loved me until I came here. I am still unraveling my old beliefs and theology, but I am sustained and continue to seek and understand. Before, I thought understanding might be unattainable, but through the teachings here at Plainfield, I have learned that it is God who gives us both understanding and wisdom. This is so much, and there is so much to be grateful for, and my heart overflows. Thank you, and thank you for the beautiful readings and our wonderful music.
Thank you. Gary.
I'm so grateful for Christian Science and how it is taught and practiced in this church. I was reminded recently that it was a few years ago I had woken up in the middle of the night with an extreme pain in my mouth. And that morning I made an emergency visit to my dentist, who informed me that I had a infected wisdom tooth, and recommended that I make an appointment to get it removed right away, because until it was removed, I would be in constant pain. Well, I thanked him and I went home, and as soon as I could, I called a Christian Science practitioner from this church and asked for help. And the practitioner, first of all, I just felt the tremendous amount of love and confidence from this practitioner, and told me that God made nothing that could poison any of His children. God made us perfect, and He keeps us perfect in His love. And then He also said that nothing could infect the perfection of God or any of God's children. And that was a statement that struck me, that nothing could poison the perfection of God, nor the perfection of His children, referring to me. Well, after I hung up, I just felt enveloped by God's love. I felt this warm, confident love just overcoming me. The pain began to subside. And that day I was planning to do a lot of work with some members of this church, and I was able to do it easily and without any problems. Well, by the end of the day, there was barely any pain whatsoever. That night I slept well, and by the morning the pain was totally gone and it never returned. I was completely healed. I am so grateful for the help of this practitioner, So grateful for Mary Baker Eddy for discovering and giving to us the science of Christianity, which always heals and always works if we let it. So grateful to be here tonight with you all.
Thank you. Lil.
Thank you also for those beautiful readings and the wonderful music. I was remembering a wonderful healing of a back problem that started in high school, and I had it many years. It was so painful to bend sideways. Not very long after coming here to this independent Christian Science church, I found the problem disappeared. My thought was moving freely from all the good I was learning about God, so I could move freely. Also came many other blessings, such as financial, employment, and a place to live. I thank God for all He has done for me since coming to this church, and I'm also very, very grateful for all the practitioner help that I have had. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce.
I'd like to add my thanks for Christian Science tonight because it's done me so much good, and so thankful for Mary Baker Eddy, who received this revelation and wrote it down, and we have the benefit of having it. I was just reminded of a healing that I had a number of years ago, but it was so profound, I wanted to share it tonight. There was a time when I opened up our textbook, Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, page 304, and read The Doctrine of Christian Science. And I was so impressed with it. It starts out by saying, this is the doctrine of Christian Science, that divine love cannot be deprived of its manifestation or object. And it goes on to say that joy cannot be turned into sorrow, for sorrow is not the master of joy. And it goes on from there. But that was the part that struck me so much, because it was just a few days later, I don't know what was going on, but it was like I was getting one argument after another that was making me really sad. And it's like I couldn't figure out why it was happening, because there was certainly no good reason for it. But I remembered this statement, that joy cannot be turned into sorrow, because sorrow is not the master of joy. So in this middle of this experience, I asked myself, who is the master here? Because the implication of that statement is that joy is the master. And I just felt like I had some tools to work with. And the next thing you know, I felt strong, and I started arguing very strongly for joy, that it was my divine right, because after all, if God is all-powerful and all-present, we've got everything to be very joyful about. Next thing you know, those arguments stopped. They stopped dead in their tracks, and they never came back. Next thing you know, I felt strong and good and happy and joyful again. So I'm thankful for that experience, for that wonderful healing. This goes to show how powerful Christian Science really is.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for a healing I had several months ago. I finally gave up rushing. The practitioner had spoken to me about not rushing and the stately goings of mind. That was what I needed to express. And somehow I just found it hard to do that. And I had an experience. I tripped on a curb and fell flat on the sidewalk, hard, and my back was very painful. I was able to get up and go home, but I couldn't. I could only sit on a straight back chair. I couldn't sit comfortably. I couldn't lie down. All I could do was either keep walking or sit in that chair. And that's how I spent the night. It was late when I got home, and that's how I spent the night. The next morning, I called a practitioner, and the first thing the practitioner said was, "You were rushing, weren't you?" She was right. And I told her so, and I said, "I am so sorry, I didn't listen." And that's what happened. And she said she would pray for me and learn the lesson now. And throughout the day, my back got more and more easier to move and to walk. By that night, I was able to lay down in bed comfortably, and I slept till 8 o'clock in the morning. And that when I got up, it was perfect. It was healed just that quickly. I am so very grateful. I learned a big lesson that when you face your sins, good things happen. And I had to face that one, and I had to get rid of it, and that's when the healing came. I am so grateful for Christian Science and so grateful for the help of the practitioner. She wouldn't let me wiggle out of it. She made me face it and stand up to it, and that's what healed. I am so grateful to be a member of this church and grateful for Mrs. Eddy and all that she has given us. Thank you. Who? Dale from Virginia. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. And thank you for those beautiful readings and all the wonderful testimonies. It was mentioned some time ago by one of the practitioners in this church that whatever the problem might be, you can find the comforting answer by looking to the church website. There you can find exactly what you need. Well, the other night I awoke feeling very sick. I turned to the church website on my iPhone, clicked on the audio library at the top, and then scrolled down to songs to lift your spirits. The uplift I received from listening to this beautiful music and the very healing words soon created a peace in me. I felt well, and I was able to return to bed and slept comfortably the rest of the night. For all the big and small blessings this church provides through the love of God and man, I am very grateful. And thank you for this service tonight.
Thank you. Debbie from Illinois. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'm very grateful that through my study and practice of Christian Science, I've learned to expect and receive angel messages throughout each day. Tonight, I'm very grateful for all the testimonies and the readings this evening because they certainly, each one, have provided an angel message to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. First, I have a testimony from Canada. She says, I just want to thank you for all the resources that are available on this precious website of the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent. I look forward with joy to listening on the live Sunday service, the Wednesday evening meetings, the Bible studies, and the roundtables, as well as to have the opportunity to do individual study from the archived materials. Every day is a gift of God, and I'm so happy to have found this church that is helping me to overcome problems and show me how to continue to live a Christly life through the teachings of Christian Science as taught by Mrs. Eddy. I am very grateful to be a member of this church. Thank you. And tonight I'd like to give my gratitude to God, to Christian Science, for so many things that I've learning and I have learned. At one point in my life, I had to give up my license for the profession I had spent all my life working in since age 17. I did not know what to do at the time. So many questions come into my thinking. But I remember I spent many hours just sitting quietly listening. And at that time, I had learned that I should depend on God only for the right decision. So I prayed and silently listened. And it came to me to leave, to just let the license go. With some anxiety, I did obey and let it go. And I can tell you the reward for that obedience has been just completely wonderful. No human plan could have planned this journey, leading me here to be a part of this holy mission. But it required a lot of trust. That's why cultivating trust in God is an imperative action, especially when we are so uncertain of the future. It's a two-way street. We have to trust God completely. And He gives us what He has already planned in our lives. Two things I'd like to share for anybody who's trying to make a decision, what to do, and so on. On page 74 of the Blue Book, Mrs. Eddy says, God has a plan for all His children, and it is a gracious plan. I have my place in His plan. I have my work in His plan, and malicious mental malpractice can neither hinder nor prevent me from seeing a full, complete, and perfect manifestation of what God's plan is for me here and now. I would also like to point to this hymn, the last verse in hymn 216, because it sums up all that I had to do then. It says, "Oh, wait on Him with veneration. Be silent in humility. He leads you after His own counsel. His will is done and still shall be. All good for you, His wisdom planned. Oh, trust in God and understand." And I think veneration needs explaining because it's something we are not to wait in fear or doubt. It says with veneration. And 1828 Webster's Dictionary says veneration, the highest degree of respect and reverence. Respect mingled with some degree of awe. A feeling or sentiment excited by the dignity and superiority of a person or the sacredness of his character. I cannot thank God enough for this explanation of how much or how we are to wait on God. And Christian Science is the only way that I have learned this. I'm so grateful for the readings tonight, for all the testimonies, which all attest to God's care. And I'm so happy to be here tonight.
Thank you. Mary.
From our church website bulletin board, Virginia. Thank you so much for the beautiful service on Wednesday, February 19. The readings were excellent on the subject of Behold the Perfect Man. Instructive, comforting, and powerful. Testimonies given were helpful in seeing how this science is practical and ever available. Thanks to all. And then Florida. Thank you for the recent newsletter, and to Jim and Carol for their prayerful work in publishing it all these years. Reading about the annual membership meeting committee reports made me grateful for all the work that is going on behind the scenes in our church. It's easy to take things for granted, but this church is blessing the whole world because of the demonstration and often unrecognized work of all its members. I'm also grateful for our house committee, Lillian, who all these years has lovingly kept our church as clean on the inside as it is pure mentally. Thank you all at Plainfield for all you do. And then England. Just a line of thanks for the last 2 roundtable sessions, which were very good. I am most grateful for the teaching provided at Plainfield and for all that I am learning. I am also grateful for the article Germs by Herbert Eustace on the website, which gives a correct thought to counter the news about virus. And then Virginia. Every day I'm so grateful for this incredible church. It is hard to find the words to tell you how appreciative I am for all that is provided to the listeners and all the work that goes into each and every talk or article or Bible study provided by Plainfield to All. The quality of thought that comes out of this church, you can feel it is God-directed, and it is so pure. What an amazing, wonderful, loving gift God has given us. With much gratitude and love to all. And then this is a testimony from Ohio. It is true that situations come to help us grow in our understanding of our spiritual sense and identity. I couldn't be more grateful for God's love and membership in the Plainfield Church. Thank you all who dedicate their time to preserving Mrs. Eddy's teachings and making them available to eager hearts around the world. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to God and the Plainfield practitioners for a healing I had recently. In the fall of 2018, my son's girlfriend of 5 years broke it off with him. He was devastated and spiraled quickly into a fretful, depressive state. I feared that he might take his life. In desperation, I reached out for the first time to a Plainfield practitioner. I received immediate support and was told to read about children in Mrs. Eddy's book, Watches, Prayers, Arguments. While she prayed, I worked with this quote from Mrs. Eddy. Quote, "Your every thought and action are love, goodness, tenderness, gentleness, beauty, holiness, joy, and peace. That peace which passeth all human understanding. In God we live, move, and have our being. Therefore, we are in life, health, strength forever. To be conscious of this is to be in the presence of God, with the Father, who is life, truth, and love. Amen." End quote. I felt immediate relief knowing that the practitioner and God were in my son's corner. When I would feel at loss for words or a way to help him, these words would give me peace. When I talked with her the next day, he did not seem any lighter in his thinking, but we persisted. By the close of that week, there was a dramatic change in his thinking. At the time of the initial call, he could not see any options other than getting back with this girl, and certainly no motivation to move forward. By the end of the week, there was a remarkable change marked by his desire to get out of the house and to begin to find happiness outside of that relationship. God provided him with an opportunity for a new job. He explored new activities and became invested in life again. A little over a year later, he is not only enjoying a busy and active life, he has met a wonderful young woman and is enjoying her company immensely. God provides. In my job, which is working with young children, the ideas in that earlier article I mentioned are so helpful. In closing, Mrs. Eddy says, when thinking of our children, quote, "You are not weak or easily led astray. You cannot desire to rule and lead others. You are not rebellious or obstinate. You have no human will. God's will is all, and you are its reflection. Therefore, you will only do right, for you reflect and inherit divine wisdom and understanding." End quote. Thank you, practitioner, and thank you to the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent. I would just like to mention the book that she mentioned, Watches, Prayers, Arguments, given by Mary Baker Eddy and compiled by Gilbert Carpenter. There are many, many wonderful prayers in that book to use. The one she mentioned was under a title called Argument, and it's in my book on page 147, and it begins with the words, "Children, you are a perfect thought of God, made in his image and likeness, surrounded by his love as by a strong fortress through which no evil can reach you. I have worked with that watch almost every day since years ago when I had 2 young children. And whether you have young children or grown children, or whether you are a child of God yourself, which we all are, it's a wonderful and very complete treatment